Shri Rudra Uvacha. Lord Shiva began to speak. Yam, all of you, Vedishadaha, of King Prācīnabarhi, Putra, sons, Viditam, knowing, Vah, your, Chikirshitam, desires, Anugrahaya, for the matter of showing you mercy, Bhadram, all good fortune unto you, Vaha, all of you, Evam, thus, may, my, Darshanam, audience, Kritam, you have done. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Please repeat after me. Lord Shiva said, you are all the sons of King Prācīnabarhi, and I wish all good fortune to you. I also know what you are going to do, and therefore I am visible to you just to show my mercy upon you. Purport. By these words, Lord Shiva indicates that what the princes were going to do was known to him. It is a fact that they were going to worship Lord Vishnu by severe austerities and penances. Knowing this fact, Lord Shiva immediately became very pleased, as apparent by the next verse. This indicates that a person who is not yet a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but who desires to serve the Supreme Lord, receives the benediction of the demigods, headed by the chief demigod, Lord Shiva. Thus, a devotee of the Lord does not need to try to please the demigods separately. Simply by worshipping the Supreme Lord, a devotee can please all of them. Nor does he have to ask the demigods for material benedictions. For the demigods, being pleased with the devotee, automatically offer them everything that he needs. The demigods are servants of the Lord, and they are always prepared to help a devotee in all circumstances. Therefore, Srila Bilva Mangal Thakur said that if one has unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Lord, the goddess of liberation is ready to serve him, to say nothing of the gods of material opulences. Indeed, all the demigods are simply waiting for an opportunity to serve the devotee. Thus, there is no need for a devotee of Krishna to endeavor for material opulence or liberation. By being situated in the transcendental position of devotional service, he receives all the benefits of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So I'll just read the translation one more time. Lord Shiva said, you are all the sons of King Prācīnabarhi, and I wish all good fortune to you. I also know what you are going to do, and therefore I am visible to you just to show my mercy upon you. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. It's Wednesday and we're at Shri Radha Gopinath Mandir in North Sydney, the most auspicious place in all of the universes, and we're doing the most auspicious activity, reading Srimad Bhagavatam as translated by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. So, just for some context, we're hearing the first verse spoken by Lord Śiva in this canto, or in this chapter. And he is speaking to the sons of King Prācīnabarhi, who are referred to as the Pracetas. And to please their father, as a representative of God, the father, the king, the spiritual master, representatives of God. So to please their father, to fulfill his request, to create progeny as a Prajapati, they are getting ready before we perform any sort of serious activity, some big endeavor. It's really important to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead and request His blessings. Either the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself or His devotee, His representative. Yesterday, Ayush Prabhu and I, we went on books, and it's always very, you can really feel the difference when you go out on the streets to do some, preaching work. If you haven't chanted your 16 rounds, attentively in the morning program, woken up early, done the whole morning program that Srila Prabhupada has given for us, it becomes really difficult. And that's a spiritual endeavor, what to speak of anything else. So yeah, it's very important that we request the blessings of our seniors as representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead before we engage in any activity, and the Pracetas are demonstrating that to us. And they come to this beautiful serene lake, and out from the water, Lord Śiva comes. He appears with all of his associates, and he tells them, that he is appearing. It's very rare to have darshan of Lord Śiva. Even devotees of Lord Śiva, struggle so hard to associate with Lord Śiva. But just these Pracetas who are just simply desiring to please the Lord, serve the Lord by their austerity, without endeavoring to see Lord Śiva comes to see them. It's really interesting. Lord Śiva is the topmost devotee of Lord Vishnu, of Krishna. He's always absorbed in meditation on Sankarshan. And so he is called Vaishnavanam Yata Shambho, the topmost Vaishnava. And so he comes to meet the Pracetas and he tells them, I know what you're going to do, and I give you my blessings. He's come here, he's so pleased by the activities before they've even performed it, that he's come to have darshan. And he will go on to instruct them about how to execute that activity and how to worship the Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he's explaining how this is like a prime example of watering the root of the tree. This metaphor is given in the Shastras that when you water the root of the tree, the whole tree becomes nourished. But if you're trying to water the leaves, then you'll struggle. It's a little bit more laborious, and I'm not sure if it will even work. So there's another example given as well in terms of worshipping the demigods. It's like going to the officers in the government and bribing them. We've been doing all this sinful activity, breaking the laws of society, and instead of facing the punishment, we try to bribe the officers of that particular department. instead, if you just become the servant of the president or the prime minister, you become his friend. He'll bail you out, no problem. But it's like by trying to go to the representative, we're trying to avoid that authority, that supreme authority. So in the same way, worshipping the demigods is, if it's done for some material benefit, then it's like it's not pure devotion. But simply by pleasing Krishna, all the demigods become pleased. So I was reading in the third canto, in Kapiladev, he explains that all of the demigods are actually situated in the body of the living being. Each sense is governed by a particular demigod. So the eyes are governed by Suryadev, who is the demigod of the sun. And without the sun we can't see, so it kind of makes sense. And like that, each sense is sort of home to a particular demigod. But he explains that the mind is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if the senses aren't serving the mind, if the senses are dragging the mind all over the place, then one is in a lot of trouble. But if the senses and the mind are engaged in devotional service, then Kapiladev says in this verse that is even better. That situation where the mind and senses are serving the Supreme is even better than salvation. And Prabhupada touches on this in the purport as well. He quotes Bilva Mangal Thakur, who says that Mukti Swayam Mukulitanjali Sevate Smart. That liberation personified is herself waiting to serve the feet of the devotee. But the devotee isn't interested in liberation, which is really interesting. Like, so much endeavor is required to achieve this impersonal liberation, merging with Brahman. So much austerity, such a long process of mechanically controlling the life airs in the body, forcefully bringing the mind by your own endeavor, again and again and again, struggling with the mind. After so many lifetimes, Pantastu koti shatavatsara sampragamyo vayoratapi manaso muni pungavanam sopyastiyat prapadasinya vachintya tattve govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. That the same goal, which is so easily achieved by devotional service, takes so many lifetimes for one who is working with the prana or working with jnana. It's just like short-circuited by devotional service. We hear in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Na Kankshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labate Param. That one who is engaged in devotional service is automatically free from lamentation and distress, and they achieve the Brahman platform, Brahma Bhuta. Mam Chayo Vyabhicharena Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate Sagunan Samati Taitan Bhakti Yoga and Sevate. That one who is engaged in Bhakti Yoga, love for the Supreme Lord, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, automatically achieves the platform of Brahman, because they have Sagunan Samatityaita, and they have completely transcended the three modes of material nature. So, we see that naturally, like a devotee, automatically, without separate endeavor, achieves this platform of transcending the material modes. But at the same time, they're not at all interested in liberation. This Swarga Apavarga Narakesh, whether they're in the heavenly planets, whether they're liberated, whether in the hellish planets, a devotee doesn't care where they're situated as long as they can engage in the service of the Lord. And in fact, Prabhupada, I think he quotes Mahaprabhu when he says that liberation is actually a ghastly place for a devotee. It's like a horrifying thing to experience, because a devotee is so absorbed in love for the form and the personality and the beautiful colors and flavors and richness of the spiritual world, that when they find themselves in this desert, of impersonalism, it's like a very horrifying experience, and I think Mahaprabhu calls that spiritual suicide. I was hearing a class by His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, and he was explaining that there's two times that Krishna refers to this killer of the soul, Atmaha, one who has killed the soul. But it's really strange because he spends the whole second and third chapter hammering Arjuna the point that the soul is never destroyed. The soul is never wet, never burnt, never dried. You can't cut it, you can't pierce it with a sword, you can't do any of these things. Never was there a time that all of these souls, all of these kings, you and me, did not exist, nor will we ever cease to exist. So after saying this in every single way possible, Krishna is trying to say the same thing, that the soul is indestructible. He says that there is this killer of the soul. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu nicely explains what does it mean when Krishna says the killer of the soul. He gives the example of a rich man's son who rejects his family, rejects his father, and he leaves home and he goes out on his own like a vagabond. A vagabond like looking for his own source of pleasure, no wealth, no place to stay. Having done so, this rich man's son, he has actually killed himself. He has killed. The rich man's son is no longer, established. He is just this lost boy, and that position of the rich man's son is dead. In the same way, when we turn away from Krishna, and we reject Krishna to enjoy separately from Krishna, we have killed that relationship, we have killed that position that we were originally situated in, and therefore we've become this lost soul in the temporary material world of suffering. But that can be re-established. That relationship is not like lost. It's just it's not like eternally gone. Just by engaging in devotional service, so quickly we awaken that eternal constitutional position. But in that sense, there are two kinds of killers of the soul. So one is referred to in the Bhagavad Gita as that person who engages in so much sinful activity. I think it was His Holiness Bhakti Purushottam Swami Maharaj who was explaining that when we engage in lusty or like sense gratifying activities, it's like rubbing a sharp object against a rough surface again and again and again. It becomes blunt, and they talk about this in like drug therapy. I think you get this high the first time you try a drug. You get this spike, right? But then it comes with a come down, right? A fall, and then the body becomes sort of back into equilibrium. So then you want more of that to fill that gap, that come down. The low point. You take more of the drug, but to get to the same high that you had the first time, you have to take even more than you took the first time. So you keep going on increasing and increasing your dosage, trying harder and harder drugs to fill that initial high, and eventually you're taking so much and you're not even getting back to your original equilibrium. You're so desensitized, and your senses have become so numb that it's like the high is no longer attainable. And we see the same thing with all forms of sense gratification. It's an extreme example, but anything we're doing, we seek happiness in relationships separate from Krishna. We seek happiness in positions, titles. We seek happiness in possessions, cars, houses, whatever, nice new outfit. You see immediately, like the first day, you feel so great. I got a pair of green work pants from Uniqlo. They were kind of cheap, and I felt so cool after walking around in my new pants. I hadn't bought like a new item of clothing in a while, and I felt so nice in my new pants, and literally like 2 days later I spilled some khichdi on it. They had like a little stain. They were sort of fitting a bit differently after you put it in the dryer a couple of times. And I was like, what are these pants, man? Who cares? Now they just sit in the in the cupboard. So yeah, all of these external objects they fade so quickly, but Krishna consciousness is ever increasing in ecstasy. So this one kind of atmaha is that person who engages more and more and more in these sense gratifying activities, leading to the numbness of the senses, the covering of the intelligence, and one becomes just completely lost in the darkness of the material world, completely ignorant to their original position. The second is that person who, as Mahaprabhu says, commits this spiritual suicide by seeking mukti, liberation. They've merged into Brahman, quote unquote, merged into Brahman, and they've completely blocked out any idea, any conception of Krishna. We hear in the Ishopanishad, Hiranmayena patrena manyante mam abuddhaya param bhavam ajananto mama vyayam anutamam. That's right. Please, O Lord, remove this dazzling effulgence of yours, which is covering, your beautiful face, and let me see you, once more as I'm leaving my body. It comes to this quite climactic point, the Ishopanishad. It's quite dense, inconceivable philosophy for the most of it, but it comes to this point where whoever's offering these prayers is giving up their life. The prana is leaving the body, and they're in this despairing situation. They're getting blinded by this bright light, and so they call out to the Lord, please, 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 remove this effulgence. Let me see you, your beautiful form. And so it's a nice prayer to sort of meditate on for our own, inevitable time of death. But I was reading in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada was explaining, in that verse, Naham prakasha sarvasya mudho yam nabi janati yoga maya samavritaha mudho yam nabi janati lokomam ajam avyayam, that Krishna says he's not manifest to those atheists, those killers of the soul, because he covers himself by his yoga maya potency, and he is invisible to them. So in the purport, Prabhupada was explaining that in the same way that Krishna covers himself with his yoga potency, yoga maya, he covers himself with this Brahman effulgence. So to hide himself from those two kinds of killers of the soul, right, those who are addicted to material sense objects, Krishna is covered by his yoga maya potency, and to those who are seeking that material, self-satisfying state of mukti, he is covered by that Brahman effulgence. So only to the devotee does the Supreme Lord reveal himself. And here we're seeing how Lord Śiva is guiding these devotees so that the Lord can become revealed to them. Again, yesterday on books, actually, it was really interesting. I saw Ayush Prabhu. I think he chanted his rounds attentively in the morning, because just after we set up in the park, one guy was walking away from Ayush with a stack of 3 books. This just really innocent looking, kind of chubby white guy, was walking along with 3 books, and I was like, wow, no way. I just wanted to talk to the guy. I wanted to find out who he was, so I just said, nice man, you took some books. And he was so happy, he looked like a little kid who just got the toy that they wanted for Christmas. He was so happy, and he came and he was like, yeah, I'm Riley. He shook my hand, and I saw on his wrist he was wearing just a string bracelet with one Rudraksh bead in the middle of the bracelet. And I was like, hey, what's that? And he had no idea what it was. He didn't know. He just bought it at a market somewhere, and he thought it looked cool. And I realized, this is Lord Śiva, Vaishnavanam Yatashambho. He's the doorkeeper. And he had come to give that first kind of auspicious, welcome to this new devotee who's now taken Srila Prabhupada's books. Many instances like that, actually. There's one devotee who came for the first time. He met the devotees at Ratha Yatra. And he's telling me he's been trying to find nice mantras to calm his mind through ChatGPT, using AI. And he was being connected with Lord Śiva through AI. And he was chanting these Shiva mantras. And he's really attached to Lord Śiva. He has these big Rudraksh beads that he wears. But it's just crazy seeing the transformation in this person. He was there for Ratha Yatra, and every single day since that Paramatta Ratha Yatra, because just I think a few days later was the start of Kartik month, he heard Ganesham Prabhu's class about the glories of Kartik month, and he has come every single day for the whole of Kartik month to offer a lamp, to sing the Damodar Ashtakam. Just first time he meets the devotees, every single day for the next month he's come to the temple to Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. And it just shows to me, we can never judge the level at which someone is a devotee. What kind of platform they're on. They're just sort of going through burning up some last karma. They might seem really rough, actually. They might seem like all kinds of characters externally, but they connect, by the mercy of Lord Śiva or some devotee. They connect with the devotees, and they reawaken that, destroyed position of the rich man's son. They reawaken that position, and they just go. There's many serious devotees, who I take the dust of the lotus feet of, who aren't able to come every single day during Kartik month. But this guy, he lives in Paramatta as well, very far away. He's coming to the temple every day. To have such commitment is just incredible. So we can never judge. But Bilva Mangal Thakur, he is another example of this. In his previous life, he was, Prabhupada explains, he was on the platform of Bhav, just like Bharat Maharaj, the platform of Bhav. But due to some unfortunate circumstances, he had to come one more time to clear up his last little traces of material attachment. So he takes birth in a nice Brahmana family, and just by bad association, I guess, by circumstance, he becomes attached to this prostitute, Chintamani. So on the day of his father's funeral, I'm pretty sure, he leaves he leaves the duties of the funeral rites, and he's so absorbed in desire to be with this, his partner, this prostitute, that he crosses the river, which is completely flooded because of the pouring rain. He jumps into the river and tries to swim across, and he grabs onto this log because he's just getting swept across in the river, and uses that log to get across the river. And then he gets out and he realizes that that log that he was just taking shelter of was a dead body. He was just holding on to a dead body to get across this river. And then he comes to the gate of Chintamani's house, and he sees this rope hanging down. And so he's in complete anxiety now. He's so close to be with his, paramour, that he grabs onto this rope and climbs over the fence, and gets across to the other side, and only to realize that the rope was a snake. And he comes into the house and he's just completely bewildered, he's covered in, he's drenched. He's just left his father's funeral. He's grabbed onto a dead body and a snake just to get there and be with this woman, just to gratify his senses. So Chintamani says to him, if you just had a tiny portion of this attachment that you have for me, for the Supreme Lord Krishna, your life would be perfect. How perfect you would be by now. And immediately hearing this, Bilva Mangal Thakur, he is reawakened, right? He has killed his soul, but he's immediately reawakened by the words of the Guru. And he goes to Vrindavan. And on the way there, again, he falls prey to this lust, and with the desire to enjoy the wife of another, he finds himself completely captivated, and waking up to this fact, this horrible position that he's fallen into again. Even after, sometimes we find this, right? We do so much nonsense before we come to the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, and so we give it all up, and we take up Krishna consciousness with this sort of vigor. But even after that, these old kind of ghosts in the closet can come back, and haunt us. But like Bilva Mangal Thakur, when he sees that, he is so disgusted with himself, with these attachments, that he takes the pin of her hair and pricks out his two eyes, completely blinds himself. And so he carries on to Vrindavan in this state, completely blind. And it's explained that Krishna himself would then come to meet with his Bilvamangal Thakur, and they would never touch, but he would sing and dance for Bilvamangal Thakur and serve him milk. So Bilvamangal Thakur is completely blind, but he's having the association of Sri Krishna. He can hear him singing and dancing, and he's being served milk by the Supreme Lord, the cowherd boy. Prahlad Maharaj, in the Brahma Samhita we hear Premanjana Charita Bhakti Velochanena Shantasa Daiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shyama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That the devotees whose eyes are anointed with the pulp or the salve of love of Godhead, only they can see that Supreme Lord. So Bilvamangal Thakur, who is completely blind, is having darshan of Krishna. And there in Vrindavan he writes this book, Krishna Karnamrita, which is a very sweet book. I mean, I haven't read it, but Mahaprabhu himself, on his tour through South India, this is one of his favorite books. I think it's Brahma Samhita, the Krishna Karnamrita, his two favorite sort of books. And there were songs by Vidyapati and Jayadev Goswami, which were his favorite of poetry. And after his South Indian tour, he brought all this back to his associates who he had spent so long separated from. I think it was 2 years he was on his tour of South India, separated from his most loved associates. So he comes back with these gifts, these beautiful prayers and songs and books, devotional literature, and together they would read it, they would hear it and chant, and they would go into so much ecstasy. Especially Mahaprabhu with Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar, they would pour over these texts. So Krishna Karnamrita is a work by Bilvamangal Thakur, and I think the second verse was the favorite verse of Mahaprabhu. It's a very esoteric book. It's describing Krishna has various sort of ages which he manifests, despite being Navayovanamcha, eternally youthful, for the pleasure and the reciprocation with his devotees' moods. He appears as Pogand, Komar, Yovanam, and Kaishor. I think I messed up the order there, but the 0 to 5, 5 to 10, so on. And Bilvamangal Thakur is absorbed in meditation on this Kaishor Krishna, Kishore. This 16-year-old Krishna. And so this book is describing him. There's one verse which is Mahaprabhu's favorite verse, so I thought we could just read that verse. I won't read the translation because I think it's a bit esoteric, a bit deep. I can't really understand it myself, but Asti svastaruni karagra vigalat kalpa prasunna plutam vastu prastuta venunada lahari nirvana nirvyakulam srasta nirudha nivi vilasad gopi sahasra vritam hastanyasta natapa vargam akilodaram kisora kriti. The one thing that just stuck out for me when I read this verse was hastanyasta natapa vargam, that the Supreme Lord, in reciprocation with his intimate associates in Vrindavan, places in the hands of the gopis this natapavargam, this freedom from apavarga. Apavarga refers to the freedom from pavarga. So apavarga is the freedom from pavarga. Prabhupada explains in one purport that pavarga is a word which is built by 5 specific syllables. So pa, fa, ba, bha, and ma. So pa refers to parishram, which is in the material world we're all forced to labor really, really hard. But that just leads to fa, which is pena, or foaming of the mouth, like when we see a horse at the races working really, really hard. It develops this foam at the mouth. And then that leads to ba, which is vyartata, which is disappointment, because no matter how hard we work, we never fulfill that satisfaction. And then bhaya, this leads to bhaya, which is burning in the blazing fire of fear in the material world. You know, we can't fulfill our satisfaction, and we've got this looming threat of death. And then finally, mrityu, death. So these are the 5 symptoms of material existence. But Krishna is giving apavarga to the gopis. After hearing from Bilvamangal Thakur that, mukti is the waiting to serve the devotees, Krishna here, Mukunda, is giving mukti to his devotees. So again we're hearing about this easily attained platform for the devotees, despite complete disinterest in such a state. And in the same verse it's described that Krishna's playing of his flute is also like loosening the garments of the gopis, which I thought we'd just touch on briefly, because today is also Katyayani Vrat, the beginning of Katyayani Vrat, so we're just remembering that pastime, from Krishna Lila in Vrindavan, where the gopis are desiring to achieve Krishna as their husband. So they worship Katyayani. I was hearing a nice parallel story about actually baby Nimai Mahaprabhu. In Navadvip he used to go to the Ganga, instead of the Yamuna he would go to the Ganga, and he would steal the clothes of the brahmanas. But he would take the clothes as they're bathing in the Ganga, and he would swap it with the clothes just a little bit further down the Ganga. The Matajis would be bathing as well. So he would take all their clothes and swap it with the clothes of the Matajis. And so they would all come in from the water, and they would just find these saris there. And the Matajis would come and they'd find these dhotis, and they'd just be completely bewildered. The little Nimai, causing trouble in Navadvip. In the same way, Krishna in Vrindavan, he steals the clothes of the gopis while they're bathing, in reciprocation with their intense prayer, to have Krishna as their husband. And so hearing this, feeling this, he takes their clothes and gives them that benediction. He gives them a very specific benediction actually. Prabhupada writes that their desires in their heart will never become contaminated by material affection, is the benediction that Krishna gives them. And he also tells them that one desire that they have, which is to just have Krishna, will be fulfilled next autumn. So that really hit me, that first part, because I was just reading recently the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj when he has darshan of Nrsimhadev. It's really crazy. I think we've all seen the movie, so no spoilers, but even in the movie I found it really beautiful when Prahlad Maharaj, he's there sitting on the lap of Nrsimhadev. All the demigods are in fear of this new form of the Lord which they've never seen before, and even Lakshmi Devi, who is the eternal consort, always massaging the lotus feet of the Lord, at the request of Lord Brahma. She doesn't know what to say, how to calm this Nara Keshari, Narasimha. What is that? Nara Mrigendra Rupam, the half man, half king of the animal form of the Lord. So she says, I can't do anything. I'm not gonna. They send Prahlad, and he goes up, and in the movie really sweetly he says, after the whole movie you're just seeing how glorious this Prahlad is. He's such an elevated devotee. He's preaching to his schoolmates, and all these demons become devotees. And he's being put in all of these horrific positions, of death, but he's completely tolerant, completely unaffected, completely surrendered to the Lord. And then Hiranyakashipu, his demonic father, tries to kill him and mock the Supreme Lord. And so then Krishna comes in that moment as Nrsimhadev to protect him. So the Supreme Lord is taking a completely new form which no one else has seen before, just to protect Prahlad, and all of the demigods are in fear of this new form. And Prahlad goes up, and in such a position, I am now, any of us surely would think, right, the Supreme Lord came just to protect me, you know. And all of these demigods, they don't know how to calm him, but here I am, you know, like, how puffed up you must feel, right? You're higher than all of the demigods. And Prahlad Maharaj, the first thing he says is like, how can I be qualified to offer you prayers? I am such a demon, you know, I am the son of a demon, you know. All these demigods, you know, they can say such beautiful things, and here am I, this demon, speaking before the Supreme Lord. So much humility. But the things which, after all of his prayers, Nrsimhadev offers him a benediction, right? This is Krishna, you know, he is so sweet. He even tells Prahlad himself, you know, my lila is that I am always desiring to fulfill the desires of my devotees. That is almost like the purpose of Krishna's existence, is to fulfill the desires of his devotees. But Prabhupada is explaining in the purport that, and Prahlad Maharaj says that a servant who has material motives for their service is like a merchant, you know, who desires some profit for their love. And such a person is not a servant. And in the same way, he tells this to Nrsimhadev, that a master who desires to give a benediction to his servant, you know, to maintain his position as the worshipable Lord, is not a real master. So he's telling Nrsimhadev, don't try and give me any benediction. Don't try and tempt me with any material desires. You know, I've had it with this material world. I've seen what happens to someone who has fame, power, you know, beauty. So he tells the Supreme Lord, I don't want any benediction, but I'll just read very similar to the gopis, the benediction that Krishna gives the gopis. Prahlad Maharaj prays, O Supreme Instructor of the entire creation, you are so kind to your devotee that you could not induce him to do something unbeneficial for himself. On the other hand, one who desires some material benefits in exchange for devotional service cannot be considered your pure devotee. Indeed, he is no better than a merchant who wants profit in exchange for service. One who unnecessarily bestows benedictions in order to maintain his position as worshipable is not a real master. One who worships with material motives is not a real servant. O my Lord, I am your unmotivated servant, and you are my eternal master. There is no need of our being anything other than master and servant. You are naturally my master, and I am naturally your servant. We have no other relationship. So it's really like completely one-pointed, Prahlad Maharaj is saying, right? Nothing else than just to be engaged in your service. And it's a really beautiful like relationship to observe. Usually when we think of a servant in the material world, it's about like control and oppression and inferiority. But Prabhupada explains that in Vedic times, the citizens would pay their taxes to the king out of gratitude, for such a king who is such a great ruler. They would pay their taxes wanting the king to enjoy. And the king would exact the taxes, wanting to engage that wealth in the benefit of the citizens. So it's like this beautiful relationship between, the quote-unquote master and the quote-unquote servant. But the whole thing is just a reciprocation of loving service. So the same thing is there with the Supreme Lord. So I think we've covered most of what I wanted to discuss. If there's any questions before we wrap up the class. Okay. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi.